we have some architectural features of Android, right? Where we'll just see first where exactly we'll be getting something called Linux kernels, right? Which is very important, and where we'll be getting something called Java kernels and C++ and all, right?
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just see them very exactly. Now,
Okay.
so the very base point of Android architecture is Linux kernel, right? So this Linux kernel, whatever I'm talking about, is something which is 2.3 version of Linux, and this will be standard across all the releases of Android. This will never change, right?
Okay.
And this is completely, written in complete Linux program, right? Which is the kernels, whatever we get in Linux, they are there. Now you can see here itself, there are even in Linux kernels, they have taken the very base programs of Linux which are already proven to be optimized, like display driver, camera driver, your Wi-Fi driver, audio drivers, flash memory, right, power management, right, you have keyboard driver, everything. So these things are something which are supported to the hardwares like keyboard and all, but they have taken the same kernels, they have written some other APIs on it, so that these APIs, whatever I'm going to show in the next set of APIs, right, will transform your touch into the actual key pressed event to these things. That's how they work,
Okay.
right? So that is a Linux kernel, and this will never change across the different releases which we have, right?
Okay.
And the next layer is your libraries, right? So these are completely written in C, it's a green part, right? All the green parts are in C++.
See. Alright.
Now you can see these libraries like SQLite, WebKit, right?
Yeah.
You have Surface Managers, MediaWorks, FreeTypes, all these, these are OpenGL, graphics library, right? So you may be, taking up some AWT features in Android Activity, right? So whenever you want to draw some graphics, so this is, this OpenGL is something which will take care of those graphics things, right?
Okay.
And you have SQLite. We'll be talking about SQLite. SQLite is something which is a database, right? Every Android,
yes.
like SQLite is a official partner of Android. Each and every phone, if you buy any Android phone, inbuilt there will be one SQLite database. This is embedded to each and every phone. Instead of saying it as phone, I can say it as inbuilt of Android operating system. I can say that way, right? If you buy, if you take anything, take a tab of Android or smartphone or any gadget of Android, SQLite will be there in it, right? So that's why if you want to save any lighter data in your Android phone, there are so many ways, like internal storage, external storage, you have shared preferences. Also, you have something called SQLite. Right? We'll be seeing much about the SQLite when we actually go ahead with our classes. Right?
Okay.
And then there is your Android runtime. I was talking about Android runtime, where the runtime will talk to DVM, right? So this Android runtime, this core libraries are completely written in Java. The blue key, whatever you can see blue, right, is written in Java, right? And these core libraries are completely .java files or .class files, right? Which will be talking to DVM, right? Which will be talking to DVM, which is dynamic virtual machine, to convert it to the DX files, right? So this is where it comes, the Android runtime. And then you have a big layer here, which is application framework. Now this is something from here on, the complete Android frameworks are written on Java, right? You have your activity manager. So activity is nothing but in Android, right? As I said in our previous class, in Android, we call each and every form as an activity. We never call it as a page or a window or anything else. We should call it as an activity, right?
Yeah.
It can be any app. It can be Facebook app or anything, right? If you are opening a profile page, you should not call it as page. You should call it as profile activity. That is what it is, right? So as I was talking about, right, whenever you open any app in Android, right, so let us say if you are moving from login activity to your profile activity, right, which means the transformation, there will be some graphic, right, from one activity to other activity. If it is moving, it will go back and one more activity will be slowly coming up, there is some transformation being happening, right? And one activity has to go to suspended state, and another activity has to come to active state. All these
Right.
transformations are taken care by your activity manager,
Okay.
right? So in the same way, you have window manager. Now, what is the difference between these two? So in each and every activity, right? So whatever is a active activity. So there are so many fragmentations being done. The fragmentation is nothing but a simple activity can contain multiple views, right? Now in Android, the controls, whatever you call as a control in our Java, right? It can be text box or combo box or something. We normally call it as controls, right? But in Android terminology, they are not controls. They are called as views or widgets.
Okay.
Right? Like we call it as text view widget, right? We call radio button widget, right? Text
Yeah.
box widget. So those things are called widgets, right? So those fragmentations, the painting of all, everything will be taken care of these two, which is activity manager and a window manager. Right? And you have many things like you have telephone manager. I hope with the name itself you can say telephone manager is something which takes care of your broadcasting, right? Messaging and all. Right? You have resource manager. Resource manager is nothing but if you have 10 different views in activity, right? They should be arranged in a proper manner, and they should be actually whatever each and every view is doing, it has to take care about everything. So those things will be taken care by your resource. And notification manager is there, where whenever you get a new email, let us say, I'm just giving an example. So you'll be getting a notification at the top. You would have seen, right? And when you drag that, you will see the complete notification. We'll be checking out how we can create a notification, right? And how we can actually drag it up. When you click on something, how it is opening some activity. We'll be working on everything, not to worry, okay? That complete is being taken care by your notification. And you have view system. View is nothing but, I was talking about views, each and every control, right? Whatever you have, from to calendar or you have combo boxes, you have list views, everything is being taken care by view systems.
Okay.
As such, you have many things in the application frameworks. And this complete layer is completely built on your Java, right?
Java.
And then you have the top layer, which is applications. So these applications are something which are vendor specific. Whenever I say vendor specific, right, it is like it's like home, contacts, phone, browser. The contacts is something again a separate application which we have, right? Whenever you click on phone, right, on Android, it will go to some application, right, where you can see contacts, or you can dial, you can see keypad, or you can see the last dial, or you can see the missed calls. So, this is something which maintains your contacts directory, right? So that's a separate application. You have a browser, you have a phone in the sense, let us say in your phone you have, when you go to menu, right, you'll see settings, you'll see some right, you'll see a file manager. Those are something, again, it's a separate application where you can see so many options to select on, right? So whenever you install something, the shortcut will be copied into your menus, right? So all these things are taken care by your phone. And these applications are something, again, these are completely written on Java. Whatever you can see in blue are written in Java. Whatever you can see in brown or maroon, it is completely in Linux, right?
Okay.
And your green part is C++. Right? So that's how they have taken it up, right? So this is a complete architecture. Now, whatever we are working on this phase, which is application phase, right? So this is a layer where we'll be working on, and parallel to these things, whatever we are going to deploy, right, which we call it as APK file, right? So we are going to deploy in this layer. So whenever we are actually deploying this layer, which means we are getting the support of all these layers. That's how we are able to deploy them, right? So I just have one slide. I don't actually go with the slides, but this is some slide which I have to show. I can't draw this, because I have to show the colors. So that's why I've just taken this, right? So this is a complete, architecture of this. But anyways, we just have to know something where before, interacting with DVM, right? The core libraries are there, which will be interacting with our application. So if there is a new version of Android, right? Let us say we have discussed about versions, right? If there is a new version of Android, like we have Jelly, we have Honeycomb, which means either this part of framework or the core libraries or your libraries will be changing. That's it.
Changed.
Right? Nothing else will change. Your Linux kernels will never change because
Right.
it is not a proprietary of Android. This is something which is Linux guys kernels, right? So they just use it as it is. That's why always they'll be using 2.3 version of kernel, right? So that is what is all about your architecture of Android, right? And yes, Android is capable of handling both 2D and 3D graphics, right? And all the applications will be handled here, which is Open GL or SGL, single SD graphic layer. There are so many things, and it has also got security layer, right? Each and every you can actually enable them to your SSL security itself. You have your media framework. Everything will be, and each and everything will be touching your kernels here, right? If you're actually going for activity, anyways, it has to get some display driver, right? How to display and all. Right? Each and everything will be used over here. Right? So that is what all about your things here. And anyways, whatever support we'll be using, right? We'll be using from application framework and libraries, right? So we'll be using, as in Java, we have something called java.lang package, java.io package, right? Where you have so many things to import. If you are going for threading, we use java.lang.thread, right? In the same way, we can also use that part. All those things are again embedded here, core libraries. Whatever you can see, all the libraries, whatever is needed for Android is also used here. Your java.io, we'll be using java.io in our Android. We'll be using java.lang thread in our Android and all. Right? So all the Java libraries, whatever is needed, are also being reframed in your architecture. Right? So that is what is all about your thing, and I hope you have already seen this runtime DVM, how it converts to, right? How it actually converts a dot class file. Yeah? It's a text file. And
Dex file.
Yeah. And these core libraries are basically using the Java 5th edition, right? So the core libraries, whatever I'm talking about, till now, anyways, they are upgrading these core libraries to Java 6, where now you have all the collection items, right? All because collections are mainly powered from Java 5, right? So that's why I said that basically from 2.1, right, or 2.3 from Gingerbread, right? They started using Java 5 because there is a drastic support on collections, and collection is something which is drastically used in Android, right? To save some data, right, or to show some data, or to attach some data to view. That is what they are using, right? So that is what is a complete architecture which you have. Now let us go and see where exactly we come up here, which is, let us talk about, okay, anyways, we'll talk about layout, but before that, let us talk about something called the scope or ecosystem of Android. It is very important to know who are the main players, or right, who are the main major players in Android, and where do we fall in this ecosystem, right? So let us say you have an Android layer, a complete Android layer. So in this Android layer, right, it will be around the way how the ecosystem falls. Now the first one which comes into Android is Google, right? Because this is the main guy who is taking care of all the release versions, right? All the R&D parts and everything. So it is something which is a main player of complete Android.
Yes.
And then you have something called OHA. I have explained this. OHA is nothing but Open Handset Alliance, right? There are around 32 to 37 companies which are tied up over here, right? Like like Samsung, HTC, LG, Sony, right? You have S4 compliant, all the all the companies whatever are being using, right? So all these participants like Samsung and all, they provide service in different ways. Some companies may be providing support based on the hardware, right? Because Samsung is something which is providing a beautiful hardware things which is completely compatible with the latest versions of your Android, right? And some companies, maybe HTC, are supporting on R&D of Android, like how we can actually move in with the new features of Android. Like if you can see the latest version, right, you have 4.1, right, I'm talking about Jelly Bean, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about Jelly Bean. So in Jelly Bean itself, you have different versions, right? If you remember, let me just go back to this. If you remember here, in Jelly Bean itself, you have multiple versions, right? You have
4.1, 4.1.
all these three are called as Jelly Beans, 4.1.x.
Yeah.
Now, in these versions itself, if you can see, in 4.1.x, right, there was one feature missing which got introduced here, which is you can actually read your files. In 4.2, it can actually read your lens, right? The way you are looking into phone, right, it can read your eye tracking lens, and it can move the image with respect to that. It has been introduced in 4.2 actually, right? This is not there here, which means that is a new, technology came up in a new version. You can see both are same, Jelly Bean, but you can see there is a drastic feature difference. If you remember Samsung, right, if you go for S3 Samsung and S4, right, it look and feel everything will be same, and Android even the internal framework and all the APIs working, all the apps working, everything is same.
Same.
But there are something, your touch base is drastically increased from S3 to S4, right? Because the touch base they have increased per PI, they have increased a lot. And there is some eye lens sensor is there in S4. Now S3 is using basically 4.1.1 and your S4 is upgraded to 4.2. That's a base change here, right? And anyways, all the tabs, even in Note 2, will be we have something called Note 1 and Note 2 of Samsung. They're parallel versions of S. Even they are using the same way, right? And again, your Android is also capable of, the new one, 4.2, is capable of handling 4G internet, right? 4G. And this feature is not there in any handset. It is only there in HTC. The new HTC phone I've got, no, it's a HTC Android phone. I don't remember the model name. That has got, that is the only phone in market now which has got support to 4G. I'm talking about Indian market, right?
Yeah, I was about to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, you have got it in your, right? But in Asian market, it's not prevailing. The 4G hasn't, prevailing yet.
Yeah,
Yeah. You have Samsung phones over there which supports even the tabs have come with the 4G support. Yes.
Yeah, we do have,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that is your OHA, right? In that way, so many guys, are participating in this. So that's why it's a so much of powerful machine. That's why whenever we are buying any gadget of Android, which we are paying only for hardware, we are not paying anything for software. Now, when I say you are not paying anything for software, right, it doesn't mean that the complete software is free. No, that is not the case. See, some of the applications are you have to pay for some of applications, but it is inbuilt anyways. No one will charge separately. But yes, some of the APIs which, let us say, if Samsung is delivering Android phone, right, which means they would have put some effort to actually make that OS work on machine, right. Also they would have designed some beautiful apps like we have something called push service in Samsung. There are something which is which you have to pay, but not for operating system, because Android operating system is completely free, right?
Yeah.
Now we basically call that Google provides it as a complete open source, right, which is completely free, right? But there is one thing which is not open source. Like, even though this is we call it as open source, right? It is something which is non-free software. We call it as non-free software. But anyways, this doesn't mean that guys have to pay, but they have to sign up something called CDD, right? CDD compliance document with Google. So this CDD is called as compatibility definition document. Now, why this is so why they have to sign this is if they want to use Android icon or Android
image.
Android logo, Android logo on their phones, they have to sign up this. Now, can you imagine any phone or tab or any smart gadget without Android logo? Never, right?
No.
Never.
Yeah.
So, which means why they are going for this is, see, if any company is using Android, so Google is directly giving the complete code of Android operating system, right? There may be some companies who may use it in a wrong way. Am I right? and they will release some gadgets into market in wrong way. Now, why they are going for this document is, before releasing anything into market, right? Google have to certify that. Right?
Yeah.
Google will take care of certifying. They'll test the complete gadget, how it is, whether it makes any disturbance in the market, everything. And if Google says yes, they will have to sign this CDD document, and then the gadget will be introduced into market. This is not that simple. Right? They have to put some conditions. Otherwise, people may do anything they want, right?
Exactly.
And even something called Play Store, right? It can be Play Store or Samsung Store or anything. Or either it can be your App Store, which is Apple's App Store. Each and every app is not directly uploaded. Even if you design any application, if you want to upload into Play Store, right, you can do that, right? I don't know that, right? You can develop your own app and you can upload into Play Store using your account, right? But even if you upload, what they'll do is, they'll take up your app, they'll actually test the complete app, they'll see the compatibility, right? You have to also give the compatibility, like from which version to which version. It is not so simple that you can just upload. They'll test it, they'll see the compatibility, they'll actually see the compatibility across all the versions as such. And if they feel that yes, this app is something which is going to help some persons, then they'll ask you whether you want to make it a paid app, right, or a free app.
Right. Okay.
Then, if you say pay, you'll have to mention how much, or if it is free, it's all about you actually, right? If you want to make it paid, you can upload it for some very less price, or if you want to make it free, you can. Then they'll introduce that into App Store. That is how it goes. That is how you can actually upload your apps into. So this much of thing, if they are taking care, obviously they have to invest so much of thing, right? So that's why they're getting for only CDD. Right? So in CDD they are getting the amount for whole. But anyways, we are not paying, but indirectly actually we are paying the company indirectly for this CDD, because we are getting a gadget which is completely secure. Right? So that is what it is. So you haven't heard about any mobile phone which is like, this version of mobile phone is completely eating up power. But we have heard the same thing in BlackBerry. One of the versions of BlackBerry, they introduced a new operating system which used to consume lot of power, and your BlackBerry never used to come up at least 2 hours of your it never used to stay at least 2 hours. Battery lifetime. That was a problem came, because for BlackBerry it's separate OS, right? And they have to certify by themselves. But here you can see there are so many participants who will be taking care of so many things. Right? That is what it is. So this is the second ecosystem layer, and then you have something called consumers, the main players, right? Consumers are something like we are consumers, right? The people who are going to use this Android are consumers. The main the main segment without whom you will never think about Android. Right? Those are consumers. And then our part comes over here, which is, you call it as app developers. So we are learning Android to develop some apps, right? So it can be Facebook, Angry Birds, some chat, everything. So there will be some segment of people who will be doing some app development. Now, whenever we're talking about app development, it can be some legal apps, or you're developing some apps for company, right? All those guys.
Right.
And in the same segment, you have some other guys called freelancers. Right? So freelancers are someone who will think about the business and everything with their own. They develop an app and they'll keep it in the Play Store. So those are called as freelancers. And when I'm talking about app developer is someone who is working for some organization to actually provide their apps. And freelancers can be, you are actually getting everything online, right? You are not, you're working on your own. That's our freelancer.
Okay.
We come under these two, right? If you have any idea in your mind, you can just develop an app, and you can just get any request from freelancing. We have got many freelancer sites, right? Where out of 10 requests, right? There are so many sites like, where people will be requesting for some website. They want some website. They're looking for some guy who can develop their websites. Some guys look for some Linux programs. Right, out of 10 those requested in market, there are around 4 requests for Android apps. Now you can think about how much big it is going on, right? Yes, there are. So you can go for dice.com or freelance.com, or you have some other many sites where you can actually
Right.
register. You can get this request, right? So this is a complete ecosystem of your Android, right? A complete players of Android as such we have, right? Now that is here. Now let us just get into the actual business and see what exactly we have in our Android. Now let us see the building blocks of Android, which is very important. Let's get into the actual thing. I hope you have your Eclipse being set up, everything is been done, and I hope yeah, let's get into the building blocks. Now the first building block is basically an activity.
Right.
An activity is something which is like a frame. We call it like a frame. Whatever we have in availability, right? It is like a frame which is using internal window to design an activity. So this activity is everything in our Android. This is a main same kind of thing which is used to actually arrange your different views on it. It's a main building block. And then we have something called view. View, or also sometimes we call it as widgets. Some of views are called widgets, right? And so on.
Right.
So these views are like controls, like button, whatever button or checkbox or whatever. We will be checking out the major possible widgets. Our classes will start with widgets actually. We'll be seeing what button is, like what are the different ways to handle button click, what are the different ways you can actually move from one activity to other activity. Everything will be seen, right?
Okay.
So we'll be checking out those. And then we have one very important thing called intent. Now this maybe if you have practiced your Android, you would have came across intent, right? So this intent is something which is on top. I can say that intent is something which is used to invoke something called I would say component. Now this component word is a bigger word. This component can be anything. Like if you want to move from one activity to another activity, you will be using intent.
Yeah.
Right? I hope you would have seen this one, right? Moving across.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, there was time where I
No,
missed
don't worry. I just took one example because I know that you would have started and you would have started with this intent. You will be getting this in Google, not ever.
Yeah.
But this intent is used not only for that. This is used for so many things. It is used to start a service. It's a main. If you don't have intent, you can do nothing in Android. This is a main player here, right?
Yeah.
You should have an intent to start a service, any service. Let us say you want to start a media, like you want to start a video, you need an intent. You want to start a call, you need an intent. You want to send a message, you need an intent. You want to send an email,
Right.
you need an intent, right? Intent is something which is a mediator between all the Android, Android these things, right? Frameworks and whatever app is there. It will actually create a connectivity between your frameworks, right? And then you can start a service or launch an activity, which we were talking about. Launch activity, right? You can actually move from one activity to another activity, or you can come back. Or there are so many things which you can do in intent. You'll be checking out the complete possibility of intent usage across activities, right? And then you also use this for web page. Web page, or I would say this as display based web page. If you want to move from one, if there is any link in your Android activity, right? If you click on that, how you are going to web page is using intent. Or you can also say something called the basic display of contacts is using intent. Or you have something called broadcast, let us say, right? Broadcasting in broadcast, or I think a message, let us say. Broadcast a message is using intent, right? Again, your storage part, which is if you want to act on the storage part. Anyway, storage can be done without intent. Or dial a phone or dial a call, right? Even this is using the intent. Without intent, if you select anything, right? If you click on any number, it has to open your call app, right? We'll be using intent to that. And there are so many uses of intent. This is what we use for intent, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a basic class in Android, right? You will be getting this intent is completely embedded in Android package. Right? This is one of the main major building block. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
And then you have something called after intent. Yes, we'll be talking about service. So this service is something which is a background process running. You have two services, which is either a local service or a remote service. Right? The local service is something whenever if you are working on your local apps, right? Let us say you are actually working on static apps, like you are playing Angry Birds, right? It is completely working on our local, right? It has nothing to do with buffering. It doesn't have to actually talk to servers, right? Which means the complete service is being on local, which means the service component will take care of the local inside your app. Now the remote is nothing but, let us say you are working with Facebook, right? Each and every time you do some action on Facebook, right, it has to talk to the server, right? Because that thing should be in sync with your server, right? Let us say you are just giving a comment to any photo in using your mobile phone, right? What happens immediately? It will talk to the server, it will update the comment here and also update in server. So your something called internet service will be working remotely. We will see how we can actually work with internet here also, right? Don't worry about that. We'll be checking out the remote service also. This is one of the and then you have something called content providers. So this is where we get something called the storage parts. I hope you know something called sessions which we maintain in the application, right? Like it can be cookies, right? Or it can be some protocol sessions and all, right? Here the definition of that is completely different, right?
Okay.
Because sometimes we may have to, let me give you an example. Now, let us say you have a Gmail app, right? So in your Gmail app, let us say at first, whenever you download your Gmail app and deploy it on your mobile phone, right? What is the first thing, when you open that, what is the first thing you get? You'll get something called login screen, am I right? It will ask you to log in. Now, first time when you log in, just close your app, maybe restart your mobile phone, do anything. And after that, once you open that again, will it ask login again?
No.
It directly go to inbox, am I right? Until unless it's not from your app, it won't. Now how it is being taken care? It is taken care by something called content providers. You can actually save your data called login details using any of your shared preferences or internal storage or external storage or in SQLite. You can use any of these content providers, right? And basically for saving the credentials, we'll be going for something called shared preferences. I'll be showing you that, don't worry, right? How to save, next time whenever you open the app, how it directly enters into something. I'll show you the complete the flow in one of the examples, don't worry. That is where something called content providers come up, right? So we basically call it as, these are the interfaces which is used to share data between apps.
Okay.
Right? Now you can actually save some data using one app 1. You can actually use app 2 to read the same data into that app. You can do that. I'll show you how. Right? We are actually talking to two different apps. This is very big thing. You have an app 1, application 1. So that is doing everything. You can actually transfer some data from one application to other application. It is possible in Android using your content providers. Right? We'll see how it can be done. It will be very interesting again. Right?
Okay.
And then we have something called fragment. So anyways, we won't see these things like content providers and all. So under these things we'll be learning something else, maybe broadcast, maybe some files, maybe some views, right? But yes, these are something which you have to know before that. Now fragment is nothing but it is a part of activity, right? It is a part of all the things. Now, if you are arranging any views in activity, right, they will be arranged in some parts. You are actually keeping your, let us say, text boxes at the top and your button at the bottom, which means internally your activity will be fragmented into 3 different layers, which is saving your 2 text boxes exclusively and the button. Right? So this fragment is, the logic behind where whenever any activity opens, right, all the controls will be shown at a time. Am I right? If you can
Right.
see. But it is not the case in your web page. If you remember your web page, right, let us say you have 1,000 different controls in your web page. When you open your web page, each and every control will be loaded at a time, right? You can see that sometimes a page will be loaded in a really linear manner, from top to bottom. It will load. Sometimes it will be loaded at once, but sometimes if your internet is slow, right, it will be painting from top to bottom. If you can see, which means your HTML, you would have written some HTML there. Each and every HTML tag is executed at a time, and what it will do, it will be from top to bottom. It will be pasting your controls, but that doesn't happen in Android. All the controls will be loaded at a time. Even if you have some 20 different controls, it will be first internally loaded in cache and directly shown to you. That is taken care by your fragment logic, right? And then you have something called manifest file. We call it as manifest, right? Manifest XML, or it's an Android manifest file. So this Android manifest file is a complete configuration file of we can also call it as a deployment descriptor. I hope you know the name of deployment descriptor, right? Deployment descriptor in Java, it is web.xml.
Yeah.
Web.xml is a deployment descriptor, or it can be your Ant XML. In Ant, we call it as build.xml, right? Build.xml is a deployment descriptor. It is different in different contexts. But in web application, we call web.xml as a deployment descriptor. In Android, we don't have anything like this. We have something called Android manifest XML. So the name will be the same way, Android manifest.xml. It will be in the same way, .xml, right? So this is something which takes care of the complete navigation part, or the resources part, or permissions part in complete Android, which is called as an Android manifest file. I'll show you when we go through the project part. We will create one sample project now, right? At that time we'll be checking out this, right? This is your thing. And then you have something called the main player of this is your emulator. We call it as AVD. AVD is Android virtual device, right? Which takes care of your emulator. Emulator is something which is a virtual device. Emulator. Sorry, I'm very bad with my spellings. Just take the...
No, that's fine.
Right? Emulator is something which will create a virtual device for you. You don't need any mobile phone to actually work on your development tasks. Right? So that is actually being done your AVD. AVD is again an internal component of your SDK, which is an I would say Android SDK, which is Android Software Development Kit. You can actually, whatever you are creating Android virtual device, you are actually creating it in your SDK, right? And obviously, this emulator, the connection between your SDK and Eclipse is being done by your ADT, right? So this ADT is an actual connector between your Eclipse and your SDK. ADT is nothing but Android Development Toolkit, right? So this is how you are actually using for connecting these things. So as such, if you have seen this, you will be using Eclipse to create an emulator, right? You may not use Eclipse. You can directly go to SDK, create your AVD. I'll show you that, okay? Create a direct AVD manager, and when you run this Eclipse, internally it will be accessing SDK, right? That's why it will access this emulator, which is taken care by your complete AVD. See, for outside world, we never know that, okay, AVD is being used. But yes, until unless you plug in this, you will never be able to use your SDK. And if you are not able to use the SDK, which means you will never be able to use your emulator. And the base summary is, if you are not able to use SDK, which means you cannot do Android programming in Eclipse. The main player is AVD. I will use something which is a building block, which you have already seen, right? And that is about your AVD. And then you have something called the main player, which is small, but yes, even this is something which plays a major role, which is a toast. I hope you know the meaning of toast. Toast is something, you would have heard something called message box, right?
Yeah, dialog box.
Exactly, message box or dialog box, right? We call it as a different names. So in Android, it is toast.
Yeah.
The name of the message box or dialog, we should not call it as message or dialog box. We should call it as toast. Toast is something which is used to show some message.
Yeah.
Not only that, we can actually create a conditional message box. Sometimes we say that, do you want to continue, right? Yes
Yeah.
or no. Do you want to close this app? So even you can actually create a conditional messages using the
Conditional
toast.
alert.
Yeah, yeah. So we call them as manual toasts. You can actually create, toast, or we should call as toast, manual toast or something, right? Where you can actually create your own way of designing your toast. Where you can
Okay.
actually keep image, right? There are so many things which you can do, graphical things, right? So that is your toast, which you have. And then
Okay.
you have something called your project itself. Your Android project itself is a building block where you have so many components, right? We'll see this thing when we actually create. Even this complete project is a building block, because until unless you have a direct support of Android project, right, you cannot do anything, right? See, you can write Java program without editor. You can write it in simple. You can design a HTML pages. You can write so many classes directly in your notepad, right?
Yeah.
When you get a class files, you can deploy them, but it doesn't work with Android. You have to have some editor, right? Why do we need editor? Because we need some compiler to convert your class files, right, into the X files, right?
Yes.
Until unless you do this, you cannot work on it. Which means this will be done only using your SDK. Which means you need a project, right? Which supports a complete Android-based projects, right? So even this we call it as, this may not be a building block, but yes, this is something which is again a very important, it plays a very important role, right? So these are some things which are, basic things which you have in Android, right, which we'll be touching upon. But yes, we'll be seeing in depth of each and every part, right?
Okay.
Now, let's go to Eclipse. Let us see something, physical now. So this was created a new workspace. Let me go to Workbench, right? Now here, so I hope we can't see this Android here, right? So for this, I hope you can go to Preferences. I hope
Yes.
Android, and I hope you can go to Editor. Nope, wait. Launch. Yes. Anyways, I think I forgot the option. I'll get you that, right? I'll show you, because see, in my Eclipse here, I'm not able to see my. Is it in web browser? No. Navigation. No. Show view.
Yeah, it should not show your perspective.
Yeah. No, it
There's
is
Android.
not here, I hope. In order to show the window, let me just go to Window Preferences. You have got something called Android. Yes, it is in tool. No, video news. No, editors. Launch. I just forgot. Let's show one second. General.
No problem.
Yeah, you have something called appearance, normal appearance, editors. Anyways, I'll give you that, okay? This is something which you don't have to remember. You'll get it whenever you want. But I'll give you how you can actually show that in your right. One second, let me just try one thing. Not here. Appearance. Okay, I'll give you that. Okay, not to worry. I
Okay.
just forgot the option. But here, anyways, even if you don't have any option of Android over here, right? You can always, you can always go to your LD path, right? Which is your LD path. Let us say this is my LD path, which is this one. You can always open this SDK manager, right? This will give you the complete thing, whatever you want. Or you can go to SDK. Here you can see, right? Your AVD manager, your SDK manager.
Yeah.
Right? You can open any of them. You don't need it here. Because whatever you open here, you will get two options, right? First option is to open your SDK manager and your AVD manager, right? You don't need that,
Right.
because you have directly option to go to your folder view, and so that's why you should have a complete hold on even the folder structure, right? It's very important. In SDK you can find so many things, right? The main parts is you should know that there are two applications of your AVD and SDK. Now, how you are getting this? You have to update your SDK manager. Whenever you open this SDK manager, right, you'll be getting so many options to install your,
Right.
right? You have to do that, everything, right? Because whatever we are going to develop, we are going to develop across different versions. If you remember, we are going to develop from 2.24 till the latest one, which means our Eclipse or our SDK should have a support from this to the latest version, right? That is what important. That's why I was asking you to install everything, right? That's a main key to develop. Fine. Fine. Tomorrow, if some other version is coming, right, maybe we can actually, upgrade your Eclipse. How you can do that? I hope you know that. You can just go to install new software,
Yeah.
right? You would have, I gave you one new link, right, which is this one, ADT. Just select that.
Yes.
If there is any new APIs, they'll be actually, they'll actually, place it here. That's why I didn't ask you to download the zip file and, and apply that. No, never do that. Never do. Sometimes, right, if you are working for any corporation, right, they won't allow this linking of URLs. They will ask you to actually download the ADT versions and deploy. Why? Because they'll have the contract with their clients, right? Because they maybe want in their US document, right? They'll sign that yes, you will be getting Android software on ADT 21, let us say, right? So that's the end point. Whatever you have to develop on 21 itself, because the latest version is 22 anyways, right? If you use 22 version, right, again what happens again? It may be you are actually getting out of compliance, which is not. So in that case, you should not use this. You should download the 21 version of zip file and then go for that. That's how it. Anyways, you can download ADT, right? I hope I've given you the link. You can download that and deploy.
Okay.
Right? That's why whenever you are working for a company, just make sure. But yes, most of the firms will not bother about using this. Most of the firms will be using this, right? So that's how you can actually upgrade. If you upgrade your ADT, you also have to upgrade your SDK also. Right? You have to do two things. One thing is SDK manager. You have to update your SDK. Then you go to Eclipse and update your Eclipse. That is how you have to do. Both should be in sync, right? That's what you do. Now let's go and actually create some project here. Now, so whenever you actually install your ADT, right? After installing your ADT, you will get one new option in Eclipse, which is you can just go to other. So this folder will be added. So this folder will be added when you actually configure your ADT. Before that, this folder will not be there because Eclipse by default will not give you ADT. Fine. Now, remember here, I'm not talking about the Eclipse which we got in ADT. No, we are not talking about this because this Eclipse is something else. This Eclipse is completely designed only for our Android. Yes, you can also use it. I'm not saying you cannot, but you can do only Android development over here. Right? But yes, we have to know something which is very generic. Now, this is what is very generic, where you can create any type of project and also your Android, right? So here, if you can see, these are the so many options you have. But yes, if you're using the older ADT like 15 ADT, I'm using 22 version of ADT. If you are going back, maybe whenever you go for any corporate, if you join any company, they may be using the older version of ADT, like ADT 17, let us say. If they have ADT 17, you will not get these many options. Maybe you get only two options. Yeah. Maybe you get a project and XML file. That's it. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah. Maybe you may get only 3: application project, XML, layout. That's it. You have to do everything with your own, right? But here, from 20th version or 21st version, your Eclipse is doing complete, stuff for you. Whenever you add any project, it will add your manifest file, it will add your permissions, it will add. When you add your activity, by default, it will update all your references, whatever you need. I'll show you that. Okay, not to worry. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
No. Basically, now what you're interested in to create a project, right? For that, you have to create your application project, Android application project, and just say next. We'll first understand this part, right? This is very important part. Before creating any application, this window is very important, right? Now, you can see here, the application name is the main thing. Your APK file will be this name. Let us say if I'm giving Gmail, right, which means your last APK name, whatever you're going to deploy, will be with this name. Right? Let us say if you are giving FB, Facebook, it will be in this name. Right? That's why make sure
Yeah.
you're actually giving the name as, let us say, this is my first application. And the project name is something which is mapping to this. The project name is something which is being created in Eclipse. You can see here, the project name is only used by Eclipse. Right?
Yeah.
That must be unique. Anyways, the project name must be unique across all the projects. Am I right? If you create the
Right.
same name, it will be. Now, if you go to this, you can
Yeah.
see here, the application name is shown in Play Store, right? As well as
Okay.
your manage application list. If you go to Android
Right.
settings, this is the name which you can see for your app.
Yeah.
And the package name is something you can do. I hope you know the packages. Package is something which is directory, right? Right? We use this to actually save some directory. Let me give some SR. This is your package. Now, after this, let's come to the very important part, which is this one. So this is where you give for what application for what versions your application is compatible. Now you can select. Now, as I have downloaded all the versions of my SDK, right? So that's why I'm getting all the versions. You can see here, right? But by default, maybe if you download some SDK, maybe it may give you the complete versions, right? But you can see I can develop my applications from my 1.1 or 1, which is my 1.01 till my 4.17, right?
Right.
So I'm keeping this as minimum SDK required, which means if I select this one, which means automatically my SDK, Android SDK, will actually provide all the supportive libraries. It will add all the supportive libraries to my application. That is what it is. But yes, basically by default we go for 2.2. I hope you remember why. Because 2.3 is a mostly used operating system of Android in market.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So instead of selecting Gingerbread, we just select for you. That's it. Right? And the target SDK is this target is SDK is something which is not the highest version. It is something like you are actually developing your Android for 4.2. That is what it means. Your target SDK is nothing but your whatever Android application you are developing is for your 4.2 version of your application. But yes, if you select minimum SDK, which means you are saying your application will also work will also cover from this version across all the versions. That's a meaning of your minimum SDK and target SDK. Fine.
So if I say the target SDK is 4.1, that means my application is compatible from
Exactly.
API 2.2 to 4.1 only.
Exactly. Yep.
It won't be compatible with 4.2 or further version.
No, see, we can't say that it is completely not compatible, but yes, if there are any new features, let us say in 4.1 there is nothing called eye sensors, right? Those things may not work. But if there are some common APIs between 4.1 and 4.2, it may work. See, it is not completely compatible, but yes, if you just say 4.1 and if you try to install the same application in 4.2, it will directly say that it is not targeted SDK. Sometimes it may not allow you to install. Yes. Okay.
Right.
So always try to select the latest one, right?
Right.
That's why I always say that always try to check for updates, because there will be update of Android. Just update that before developing any app, right?
Okay.
And then this compile with. Compile with is something. See, I said the class files will be converted to .dx files, right? Which means if you are selecting the latest version of your API, which is 4.2, right? Which means you are actually using the latest DVM to compile it. If there is any change in DVM, right, obviously that will affect your project also. That's why always go for the latest one, right? And anyways, the theme is something which is what shade you want. You can go for anything, that's fine, right? You can go for light or hollow.
It's the theme of the activity page. I mean,
It's the theme of the activity page. If you can see the next slide, let me show you that. Right. So this activity, right? This activity page.
Yeah, here.
Actually,
Okay.
by default, you can just keep maybe hollow light and dark action bar. Right? That's fine.
Okay, but any is fine, right? Any selection is
Anything
okay.
it doesn't matter, because we'll be creating your own styles, right? What should be the background? Yeah, you can create that, not a problem, right? We'll take care of that. Now this is the first screen which we have, right? Let me click on next. Now this is something. Now it will give you some option. There is a straightforward thing where you want to create it is same as our Java application, right? Where do you want to create and everything. Now here we have something called. There are two different things here, which is create a custom launcher icon this launcher icon is nothing but for every application, right? When you actually deploy any application, there will be some image will be created in your mobile phone, right? That is called as a launcher icon, right? You can actually change anything you want. If you want to create, you can just keep it. And this create activity is something which is asking for you want to create any default activity. Yes, yes, right? When you go, this will be your launcher icon. By default, whenever you insert, I'll show you this where it will be visible, right? And whenever you deploy this, right, this will be the icon on which you have to click to open your application. That's what. Anytime you don't have to change here itself. Anytime in your life cycle of application development, you can change your application image. I'll show you that.
I can.
Right?
Okay.
Now let me just say next. Now here, okay. Now here, if you want to create a basic activity, you can create, or otherwise uncheck that. But always do check it out because you'll be getting a basic activity, right? Anyways, if you want to uncheck, you can do that. Not to worry. Let me just click on next. So as you have checked here that I want something, that's why I'll get it. Otherwise, you can see you'll get direct finish button, right? But yes, we'll create one basic button. Just say next here. Yeah. Now you are getting this main activity. Always keep one activity open. Why? If you remember in the web application, right, we always keep one page buffer, right? That page will be startup page. See, whenever you deploy any web application, right, it doesn't mean that not application. If you deploy any website, right, so one page will be a home page, right? Sometimes that home page may not be the same home page, right? You may actually bookmark your web application, but sometimes every time you click on that, maybe it will take you to some other image page. Right? When you click on that, it will go to home page, which means they'll always keep one page in buffer. In the same way, always try to keep your startup activity as this. I'll show you where to do startup activity and all. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
You can actually mention which activity is your startup activity. You can change anything, everything in Android is configurable. Don't worry about that. Okay. I'll show you that. So as of now, let us say yes, this is the main activity. When you are creating only one activity, which means this will be your startup activity, right? Just say finish. So this will be, and now we load the data, everything as I said. Always try to download the SDK manager. Always try to keep your manager updated, right? So that you can see here the latest version is 4.2, right? As I've downloaded everything, you can see I've got my 4.2.2 itself, right? Which means even my application will run on my latest phone of S4 or HTC, the latest one. Right? Now this is your basic. Now you can see here that your image is coming up. This image is not a launcher icon. And here you can see some called API version, right? So now this is your API version, right? If you want to select anytime, you can actually change that.
Okay.
Right? You can change your API versions, not to worry. But as of now, we have our latest API version deselected. Just keep it active.
Okay.
Doesn't
So the API version can be changed from higher to lower, lower to higher.
You can change. But don't do that unless you want that. Because sometimes your activity may not work on your latest versions. Don't do that. Just always check this, always pick the best, because whenever you try to create your application, right, there itself you have selected what is the minimum SDK and what is the target. There itself you are actually going for this. Just leave that. Right? And here, if you want any change, you can do that. That's what is the option. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that every time, just by changing the API to the latest one, like say if I've created my app first with API 17 and tomorrow there is an API 18 coming up. So just by changing the API, my app.
No, then you have to work on upgrade. That is what we call it as an upgrade, right? Then you have to work on upgrade. Yes, that you can do anytime. Right? Maybe you can go to activity.
But then without changing the code, or I need to change some code too?
No. So it all depends, Geeta. Like, see, if you are actually getting in 18 API, let us say in 18th version, which is 5, let us say it's a Keyline Pie, which is the 5th version of Android SI. If they are actually providing a new API for that, for development API, right? If there are new add-ons, right? See, they will not change the existing ones, never. If they want to change, they will give it as a deprecated methods, right? They will definitely have to say that this is going to be deprecated. They should not immediately remove something. Why? there will be some millions of apps, right? Everything will be getting
Yeah.
affected. So they will not do that, not to worry. But
Okay.
yes,
Mhm.
if you upgrade it, I'm sure that will be working for sure. Because upgrade will always work. But if you go beyond, the problem comes in. Because if you
Okay.
go to, see, backward compatibility will be a problem. But forward compatibility may not be a problem with at least one immediate version. But yes,
Alright.
if you are saying something, you have developed something on 17, if you are getting API 20, I can't say that it may completely
It may
work.
work. Yeah.
It's something which
Okay.
is far,
Yeah.
yeah, that is how it goes.
Got
But yes, with at least one upgrade, yes, it should be working, right?
Okay, got you.
But again, it all depends on how heavy you are actually preparing your activity, right? It all depends
Right.
on that, right? If you're actually going for multiple controls and so many things, obviously it may take some time to upgrade. Yeah, it happens, right? But in companies, upgrade is not so simple task. They'll actually create a separate project for that, right? They'll not allow you to directly upgrade. Yeah, it happens, right? So that is what is a how you do a project. Anyways, we'll stop you here, right? Next class we'll
Okay.
just see the complete flow. First we'll just understand the complete project elements which we have. Then we'll move on to
Okay.
creating something. Right?
All right.
Okay. So let me. I'll be sharing the video with you, Geeta. You can just go through
Okay.
that if you want. Okay.
Sure.
So you have